Hi everyone, welcome back to Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching. This is Erin. So today's podcast is about the value of boredom. So boredom is probably a state that you experience that maybe you don't like that much. I know for me with boredom, I will try to avoid it. I will try to run away from it. And then ultimately, I'll probably make bad decisions to avoid it. So I want to tell you about why and how boredom is valuable for you. So this podcast is inspired by one of Matt and I's 15-minute check-in. We were talking about what our experience was that day and maybe some things that we're working on. And I was talking about how I love Ashtanga yoga. I used to practice it pretty religiously. But I'm trying to think of, my style as far as teaching, it's kind of evolved. And people ask me well, what style of yoga do you teach? And I'm like, gosh, it's kind of a mix, spiritual from the 8 limbs, classically grounded, but also tantrically infused. Does that make sense? And I talked about how I love Ashtanga, but I kind of get bored with the same sequence. I know that there's a lot of subtleties. I've met amazing Ashtanga teachers, especially recently. I found a really great one. And it makes it way less boring, the subtleties. But the truth is I like to move my body in many different ways. And so he was like, okay, well, is this serving you or not? And then I was like, well. And then he's like, oh, actually, in your framework, you would say that you're choosing boredom. And I was like, son of a bitch. He's right. So I thought, okay, well, why am I choosing boredom? Why am I choosing boredom? And so I had to sit with that and think about it. Because using my tools, I know that that is true, but wouldn't you probably just say boredom is happening to me? No, I'm just bored. It's well, you're choosing boredom. No. There's just I don't like what I'm doing. And then it hit me. You're choosing boredom when you are doing something and you think that you should be doing something else. And so what happens in that moment is you disengage from what you are focused on. And then you resist it. It becomes uninteresting, but you're in the moment, you're doing the thing, and you think you should be doing something else. It creates even more resistance in the body, and then you're bored. Think about it. It's pretty accurate. Anything that you do has subtleties and beauty to it, whether it's washing dishes or sweeping the floor or organizing your treatment room, which I just did. If I think about doing something else, it's going to pull me out of the moment. I'm not going to be as connected. For example, I'll just give the example of Matt and I's check-ins. We do 15-minute check-ins every day. If I'm thinking about something else, or if I'm thinking about, oh gosh, I have coach school coming up. I have these different programs coming up. What am I going to do? Blah, blah, blah. And he's talking, I'm not connecting with his heart. And the way that you connect with anything is much more than just with your head. It's with your heart. And most people would say, who are spiritually inclined, would say that's the most important aspect, is to be there with your whole presence. And so boredom is valuable because it's an indicator that you've checked out. Sit with that for a second. Take a deep breath. Because I know that when I came to that realization, I was like, fuck, I've been checking out. So when you're bored, it's okay. It's okay. We all check out. We all get bored. It's even Nishala, I did Yoga Sutra studies with her, which by the way, she's coming to Thrive in April. If you want to meet a holy woman who has been studying the Yoga Sutras for over 30 years and has books on yoga and sutras and lived in a monastery for over 20 years, please come see us. But even Nishala, was talking about how you can't be enlightened all the time. Like you come back into your humanness. And she gave this example of like, she said something like, oh, I don't like the taste of this. And she was sitting with someone who was like, who doesn't like the taste of it? And she was kind of like, I don't like the taste of it, because she's like, you don't want to be on that sort of like cloud, like plane, like dropping out of your humanness and being in this enlightened state all the time. It's annoying when coaches do it. It's annoying when teachers do it. And like sometimes you just want to chill, and sometimes you just want to like bond in your humanness, right? But boredom is something that we choose. Again, you're checking out. It's part of being human. But when you realize I'm bored, rather than resist it or be like, I don't want to do this, like, all right, take a few deep breaths. Let it be an indicator that, I've checked out from the present moment. I've checked out from the activity that I was doing. So one of two options: either let me release what I'm thinking and drop into the present moment, and I guarantee what you're doing will become much more interesting. Or if you're like, you know what, I'm too distracted, like I'm going to let this go and I'm going to go handle something else, then do it, right? Like don't sit there battling yourself. So boredom has a purpose. It has value. And this is also a chance to study yourself more. Swadhyaya is the study of yourself through spiritual scriptures, introspection, or nature. Study your patterns, study your habits, notice your moods, your changes. And when you're present, you learn so much more. When you're present with your body, it speaks to you. It will sing to you 1,000 precious secrets. When the mind is quiet, the universe speaks. So you have all the answers within. I'm here to help guide. I'm so honored. I do have Coach School coming up in January 20th to the 27th. If you want to learn from me in person, 8 intensive days. I also do online programs. You can get a little discount too. So reach out to me, Erin at erincoach.com, if you're interested. I hope you have a fantastic day, and namaste. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to support the podcast and if it's helping you, please consider writing a review. You can go to iTunes or Google Play, go into the search bar and type in Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching, scroll down, and you can leave a review. This helps other people to find me as well as bumps us up in the search ratings. Also, this podcast is sponsor-free, so that means we don't receive anything for doing it. If you feel so inclined and this podcast is helping to support you and you want to return the favor and help to support any production costs of the podcast, feel free to give a donation to a Venmo link, Thrive Yoga Fit, or PayPal, Erin at erincoach.com. If you don't have the means, don't worry about it. We're not going anywhere. You're all good. But if you would like to give back, you can give back in those ways. Last thing, we have a coaching certification coming up. And it's 7 days of an intensive work, followed by a 3-month mentorship. You will not find another teacher that's more passionate and dedicated than I am to my students and their learning. And not just their learning, but the application and how they show up in their life. If you've been listening to this podcast and it's had a huge impact on your life, just imagine what it would be like to spend 7 intensive days with me and then a 3-month mentorship. You can check that out at thriveyogafit.com/coach-certification. Again, thriveyogafit.com/coach-certification. Thank you so much. Namaste.